let's start at the very top. The odds-on favorite to win the National League East, Atlanta Braves. Now, the Atlanta Braves made some acquisitions, made some losses this offseason. Jurickson Profar is the biggest one. Brian De La Cruz, who came over, he ended the season with the Pirates. He's now an Atlanta Brave. Those are a couple of the free agent signings. Any trades? Doesn't look like it. Couple losses here. Ramon Laureano, he kind of fell from grace. He was with the Guardians there for a little bit. Charlie Morton, big loss. Max Fried, over to your Yankees. Over to your Yankees.
What a guy.
8-year contract.
Great pitcher. Always been a great pitcher for Atlanta.
The greatest pitcher. The greatest pitcher. 8-year contract. He's out of Atlanta. We're looking at a starting lineup here. This is what Fangraphs has. We're going by Fangraphs. Batting leadoff, Jurickson Profar, followed by Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Marcell Ozuna, Michael Harris, Ozzie Albies, Sean Murphy, Jared Kelenic, who is scheduled or set to platoon with Brian De La Cruz. So Kelenic will bat against right-handed pitching. De La Cruz will go against left. And then Orlando Arcia. The starting rotation, you have Chris Sale, reigning National League Cy Young, ace. Renato Lopez, Spencer Schwellenbach, Grant Holmes making the move from the bullpen, and Ian Anderson. Seth, Braves, what are we thinking this year? Hey, obviously, the big new Ronald Acuna, he's going to be back at some point. I saw Spencer Strider aiming for May, maybe.
I think one of the biggest reasons that when you asked if any of their additions came to mind, go ahead and kick it off. I think their biggest one was Profar, and their offseason was kind of lackluster. I mean, they didn't make any big splashes like, you know, the teams we see in the playoffs every year. The Braves are counting on the injured players from 2024 to have bounce backs in 2025. They're counting on Ronald Acuna to maybe not have the 2023 season where he had 70 stolen bases, but something to the effect of when he comes back in the middle of summer, maybe they're looking at 35 stolen bases and still 20 home runs. Maybe that's what they're looking at. Spencer Strider, a big addition to their rotation, but outside of Profar and maybe De La Cruz, they're really not looking to add that much. So they're still counting on the fact that they were a playoff team last year, barely scraped by in the playoffs, came down to the last season, the last series. It just kind of, they're counting on the talent that they have instead of making additions like other teams that are just really pushing the limit and building super teams, essentially.
So right off the bat, I look at this lineup and I think where the holes might be. First off, I think you're exactly right. They're banking on Acuna coming back and being at least most of what he was pre-injury. And the same with Spencer Strider. They didn't make many moves other than the Profar acquisition. But here's my issue with the Profar acquisition. I think it's fine. You take a risk on a free agent, it's fine. Like you know, it might pan out, it might not, whatever. But Profar, when Colorado took a chance on him back in 23, it did not go very well in a very hitter-friendly park. And even after that, when he was doing so well with the Padres, he made comments that made it seem like his time in Colorado was not great. Whether that means like there was an attitude issue there, didn't like something with management, I don't know. That worries me a little bit. Profar going to a new team, it's like sometimes it is the management. You know the Rockies aren't a good team. There could be something wrong there. Sometimes it's the player. Does that come to your mind at all when you think about this pickup?
I don't. I think the Braves have a track record with Profar. He's played with them before, right?
Yep.
So I think, I hate to show my bias here when we're talking about the NL East, but I mean, if you look like a player like Jazz Chisholm was kind of one of those guys that was just a highlight reel for the Marlins, would get guys in the seats. And then he came to the Yankees and he's like, wow, it feels different being a part of a winning culture. And I think the same thing turned out last year with Jurickson Profar. When you're playing with a bottom 2-3 team in the league like the Rockies, it's kind of hard to go out there every day. I mean, just look at Anthony Rendon. He doesn't even play baseball anymore.
We don't need to get into it on this one. That is one of the biggest steals of all time. I have seen so many stats since he got injured saying how much money he's made and how little baseball he's played. And I remember last year he made some comment, Seth, about like baseball isn't the most important thing in my life or something of that nature. And I was like, I get it, right? I get it. Your job should not be the most important. Your family, religion, all those things. But you can't make those comments after you sit 3/4 or don't sit, but you're injured for however long and then you get injured again. Absolutely crazy stuff. But I get what you're saying. Culture matters, and it's tough to get up for a team every day when you know they're not going to win. Shocked to see his offensive numbers as bad as they were in Colorado. But I kind of agree with you. I don't think we're going to see this similar slump from him. My issue with the Braves, banking on injured players to come back and return to some semblance of the form they've showed before, it seems like it almost seems like wishful thinking. Oftentimes we see pitchers don't, especially with fastball velocity, they don't really return back to what their top was until 2 full years after that surgery. Spencer Strider is going to be pushing 1 year in April or May, and even then, there's no guarantee he's going to be back to what he was. Now, you could argue Spencer Strider doesn't need to be back to what he was pre-surgery for this Atlanta Braves team to succeed. He has to fill the spot of Ian Anderson. That's what Strider has to do, and I think that's possible. My gripe with this team is the starting rotation, and I understand Chris Sale, reigning National League Cy Young, more than fine, right? He's your ace. Seth, 36 years old, injury history, shoulder injury history. This is like, I almost feel like the National League Cy Young year you get from him is the peak. And now that's the guy that you're building this rotation around. Renato Lopez, great. Had a breakout year. Schwellenbach, sneaky. I really like this guy. I think he might work his way up that rotation by the end of the year too. But to have a guy like Sale, and then you have Grant Holmes, who was in the bullpen last year, making a move to the starting rotation, I can't get behind it. That's why I'm a little bit lower on the Braves. I was kind of surprised when I first looked at the odds to see them as the favorite to win the National League East, because there were 2 other teams, dare I say 3 other teams, that I think could give them a run for this division. Seth, do you have any last comments on the Braves before we go over-under on the win total?
I think it's going to be tight. I think the Braves have some work to do, especially in that rotation. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think they have some work to do. But I mean, if we look at other teams, like Garrett Crochet was in the bullpen 2 seasons ago, and you see what happened. So I mean, it just depends how the cards play out. So I think the Braves are a very good team. They were a playoff team last year, and I think they have the potential to be a playoff team again. And it's just a bit of a gamble banking on young players coming back from injury, but they're confident, and I hope they are. I hope it works out for them.
Prove me wrong, Braves. I don't care. I don't not like you guys. Prove me wrong. We have over under. I see 2 different numbers here at 2 different sports books. We'll go 92. Over under 92 wins. Where are you going?
Ooh, you know what? They set lines for a reason. That's a really good line.
That's a really good line. They do this for a living.
Yep. I'm going to say 93 win Braves. 93 win Braves.
Wow. So over by 1.
Taking the over.
Over by 1.
Yep.
All right. There we have it. I'm going under. I'm going under for the Braves.
That's a decent bet.
Yeah. You're really banking on a lot going right to go. And that's a pretty high number given some of the others that I've seen. All right. Working our way down.